want to be able to transfer your ability to vote to another person. In the last talk, we heard about somebody who has their lawyer vote for them for some reason. And that's not supposed to be allowed in our system. And then we have, ultimately, public confidence in the outcome. We want not only this to be true, but we want people to believe that it's to be true. Now, if you are a computer scientist, one of the things you do is you look at the requirements and you say, well, the best thing I can possibly do when given a set of requirements is show that there's no point in even trying to build a system that meets them because it's theoretically impossible. And this is the sort of set of requirements that lends itself to that very quickly, because we can kind of see that some of these requirements kind of contradict each other. That you might have to choose between one or the other, or make some kind of compromises down the line among them. So the one that I want to focus on is secrecy versus transparency. We want everybody to be confident in the outcome. We want everybody to be confident that their particular vote is counted, but we don't want to be able to prove how any individual voted or allow somebody else to be able to find out how it was. That's pretty hard. And it leads to lots of difficulty in designing very heavily constrained systems. One of the things we hear over and over again is, well, hey, we have secure ATM machines. Why can't we have secure DRE voting machines? Well, in an ATM machine, you kind of get a receipt of how much money you withdrew. And we really don't want, because of one of the requirements, to give people a receipt showing how they voted, and so on and so on. So this is kind of difficult. So the best slogan I can come up with is, one adult citizen, one easily exercised but untransferable option to cast a secret, accurately counted vote after a fairly conducted public campaign that will determine their representative for certain issues. And that's kind of that's kind of the computer scientist version of one person, one vote. Okay, so there's technology involved here. We have been increasingly using technology to conduct elections, although that has not been true since the beginning. Early elections in the US, as I think a number of speakers in this track have pointed out, basically consisted of a bunch of rich dudes showing up in a room and raising their hands on election day, and everybody kind of agreed on what the outcome was from that. But that has the problem that it's not secret. So we didn't have ballot secrecy from the very beginning in the United States. And it probably doesn't scale very well. Asking people to all show up in the same room and raise their hand and count is probably not something that could scale up to kind of modern population densities. So what that means is not just the principles have become important, but the mechanisms with which we implement these principles have become really important. And so technologies for voting have evolved over time to increasingly allow, to take advantage of new advances in technology, to allow voting to scale up, and to try to bolster one or another of the kind of informally stated requirements that elections have. So we have paper ballots, mark something and put it into a box. We have machine-counted ballots, mark something in some way and drop it into a box so that it can then be counted and tabulated by some sort of machinery. We have direct recording voting machines. Interact with a machine that mechanically will mark a ballot that is then stored inside the machine itself. Those were the machines I grew up on. New York State had them. These machines with these levers, you would flick the little levers. What they would really do is mark a little advancing piece of paper for each poll. When you pull this big lever, a chunk happens. That's the sound of democracy in action. The curtain opens and then you can leave the room. Those machines were in use since the late 1930s through around 2000 throughout much of the country. another type of machine, is replacing that, but with modern computer technology. So instead of a lever, you touch a screen, and instead of marking on a piece of paper, you store it on a memory card. And because the voting community is great at catchy names, those are called direct recording electronic voting machines. They're direct recording because they record directly inside the machine. They're electronic because they're computers. I prefer to call them, as many people in the electronic voting community prefer to remind us that that means they're voting computers. And that means that understanding what they do is as easy or hard as understanding what any general purpose computing device does. And whether or not it actually works faithfully is as hard or as easy as building bug-free software. Now, perception and reality are linked here. Public confidence in elections is what gives government legitimacy. And now public confidence in elections is not just a matter of whether or not we trust the vote, but whether or not we trust all of the technology that led to the ultimate tabulation of the vote. So in other words, computer science and building reliable computing systems, as we use computers for this, is actually kind of central to whether or not we regard the government we have as legitimately being allowed to govern. In other words, you should be in this room thinking about this. You should be engaged in this issue, as we all are, and you should scold people who aren't here for not showing up. Right? Okay, so what's the threat model is the first question a computer science security type would ask. And the traditional threat model for an election is what? What's the traditional thing that we have to defend an election against? What? Well, so we want to defend, what would you be trying to do? What would an attacker be trying to do? Fraudulently vote. We want to stop people from casting more than one vote per person. We want to stop people from being able to sell or buy votes. We want to prevent ballot stuffing, to prevent somebody from getting elected to dog catcher without actually the will of the people being behind that. Yeah?
There's another threat model, nullify precinct.
So, absolutely, but the threat is ultimately in the service of cheating on the election. That's kind of the traditional threat model that we all are trying to think of, and I'm sure you have a lot to say, but I get to talk. The traditional threat model is cheating, right? Trying to alter the outcome to serve you. Because either you think you get to vote more times than you should, or because you're the candidate and you really want this office instead of that other jerk. And in fact, there's a long history of this sort of fraud in U.S. elections. We've had people being sent into polling stations to vote by candidates and vote buying, and ballot stuffing, and a number of ingenious ways, many of which have interacted in remarkably quick ways with a new voting technology, where somebody has figured out how to exploit a flaw in some new voting technology that has come out. And so almost all of the laws and procedures and so on have been looking at this threat model. And one question you have to ask about any new technology is whether it can become easily unplugged to the top of the system. And that will show up in a second. So the thing you have to ask about any new technology is, compared with the technology that preceded it, does this make that threat easier or harder? Right? Does the next technology that comes along make us better off or worse off against this threat? And the electronic voting community, at the time that I worked in it, has largely asked the question, are DRE machines better against this sort of traditional threat than the paper systems or what have you that they had before? There's also another threat, and this is a threat that we've kind of understood, but we haven't understood it in quite the sharp way that we understand it now, until the most recent national election. And that's the threat of hostile state actors. That is, someone who's not necessarily interested in stealing a local office, but rather interested in doing that or perhaps other things, perhaps disrupting the vote itself to create disorder, or casting doubt on the legitimacy of the winner to govern as a hostile state action, as an act of state aggression. And this is a very different class of threat. This is a class of threat in which, first of all, the attacker is trying to do, is maybe satisfied with many more different kinds of outcomes than someone trying to steal a specific office who's focused on one thing. And is also an attacker who's likely to have vastly greater resources, both to understand the underlying technology as well as to carry out the attack. And so a question we also have to ask is, does whatever the technology we're using make this threat an easier threat or a tougher threat? And that's a question we haven't really been sharply asking for very long. Okay, voting in the US, everybody knows voting in the US is highly decentralized. The federal government only sets kind of broad standards. Each state has its own laws, but elections are run at the local level, mostly run by counties. There are over 3,000 counties in the United States, and then in places where you vote in person, the election takes place in neighborhood voting precincts, which might serve hundreds of voters within that precinct, and there might be tens, hundreds, or thousands of those precincts per county itself. U.S. elections are more complex than almost anywhere in the world. We make more decisions, we have more races, and within precincts there may be multiple different kinds of ballots, because you might be voting not just for president, but also for like who represents you on the school board, and that might be different from other people voting in the same precinct. So we have really complicated elections, and that very much means that computers have a natural role in simplifying the tabulation process. It's not nefarious that people have thought of the idea of using computers for this, because it's a pretty natural consequence of just how complex and large scale U.S. elections actually are. Does anyone recognize this photo? So this is, what was this photo of? Hanging Chad. So that man was named Chad, or so this was one of the Florida recount judges in a remarkably fortunate capture the moment pose, looking at a ballot and examining it from the 2000 Florida election. A question for you, and people have different answers to this question. How many people look at this picture and say, what an embarrassment that technology is? Versus, how many of you look at that picture and say, what a great thing that technology is? How many think, what an embarrassment that technology is? In this room, there's not that many. Right? How many people think what a great thing that technology is? Yeah, I'm probably in that category too.
But there's other opinions too. That was a fraud, and those machines, those punch cards were designed to fail. It came out in a Dan Rather report.
Yeah, you can rant at me after the talk.
Okay.
So I'm going to have one here. So this is an example of one of these machines. Because that's clumsy. Okay, so this is an example of one of these machines. And I have a photo of it. Put up with all that. I can just show you what the photo is of. This is a punch card voting machine. And this is the type used in Florida. This particular one was from Wisconsin, and it has the ballot in it from the ballot card in it from the 2000 election. And it's a really interesting technology, because the first thing you will notice about this technology is there are no electronics involved in this at all. This is 1960s technology. These started to be produced in the 1960s. They were used through about 2000, and then something mysteriously happened to make people not like them. And the voting experience does not involve any electronics at the polling place. There are electronics involved in the tabulating. And what do you do? Well, how do you vote? Well, what you do is you take a ballot, which will be given by your poll worker, and this is usually contained in a booth. The booth does have electricity involved. It's for the light above the thing that illuminates it. And that's about it. You take your ballot and you insert it into the machine and you push it down a little bit. There's a little spring that makes sure you line it up properly on these two little red knobs. And now you can flip through your voting instructions. And when you want to vote, you pick your candidate. I'm going to vote down the straight Wisconsin Greens ticket. I have no idea what they stand for. I presume it has to do with moldy cheese. I vote for them, and now I voted. What have I done? Well, I pull my ballot out, and you will notice, you can see a little hole in there that I have made. It's punched out. These are perforated little rectangles associated with each possible position here. And so if you voted for somebody, one of those little holes would get punched out. And you can, if you're a suspicious type, you might imagine that, hey, wait a minute, how do I know I actually marked the correct position? Well, you would notice that, well, my candidate was number 68, and oh, look, it's box number 68, which was punched out. And now you take your ballot, you rip it apart, you put it in the ballot box or wherever it goes, and they take a stack of these and they put them through a typical like IBM-style punch card, color card reader, and it shines a little light through each card one at a time and produces a result. So all of the technology, all of the computer-type technology and the electronics are on the back end of the system. The voting itself is actually a pretty low-tech process. So there's an interesting property of these machines that is really quite remarkable, which is that in spite of the fact that there are no computers involved at the polling place, there is, and I can't decide whether to call it a memory leak or a buffer overflow attack in the vote casting process. And anyone who was alive during late 2000 learned all about this technology. What would happen? Well, at the beginning of the day, you put your card in and you punch holes in them. And the holes get punched in pretty easily. Now, I want us to move from Wisconsin, where people are very hardy, to Florida, where people are old and have arthritis. And imagine that you're kind of old and arthritic. You're being asked to perform a little bit of a physical feat in voting. You take this little stylus, line it up, and punch through the line. But it's actually fairly easy to do. There's a little perforation here. It's actually fairly easy to punch through the card. But what happens is, because of conservation of matter, the little pieces of paper that you are punching out go somewhere. And where do they go? Well, this is the machine. Well, there's a little kind of piece of rubber with little slits in it behind each of the holes in this. And they were basically kind of just stuffing the pieces of paper into this little piece of rubber, and it's about that thick. So it's, you're just kind of pushing this into this rubber slit thing. It gives a tiny little bit of resistance. As the day goes on, the really popular candidate accumulates more of these little bits of paper called Chad behind their little hole where you would vote for them. And in a typical election where maybe 100 people show up in a polling place, that's fine. There isn't enough to make a difference. But if there's a really big turnout, like say Bush versus Gore, right, where people really cared about the outcome and they knew it was going to be close, lots of people show up at the polling place. So these machines are designed to serve maybe 150 people across the course of the day before you have to open up the machine and kind of vacuum it out. But in the 2000 election, it was a pretty popular race. And so what happened is that the really popular candidate in any precinct got physically harder to vote for as the day went on. And we have a population of people, many of whom aren't all that physically strong to begin with, right? This is where your grandparents go to retire. And so the people showing up late in the day, if they were in a precinct where Bush was really popular, it was hard to vote for Bush. If Gore was really popular, it was hard to vote for Gore. And in Miami-Dade County, that happened a lot. So a normal ballot kind of looks like this. You have a really strong hole. You look at a ballot when this has happened. We might have, for the less popular office, a really straightforward hole in it, but for the more popular candidates, they might not succeed in pushing that through all the way. They might only kind of dimple it down a little bit, but not push it through completely. So what would happen there? Well, anybody who examines it with their eyes would say someone was clearly trying to vote for somebody there. You can kind of clearly do that. But if you run it through an optical scan reader that's throwing light through this, that's going to be opaque, and it's going to look as if they didn't vote for anybody. And that's called a dimpled Chad, a term that did not exist prior to the 2000 election. Another possibility is that they'll push it through, but not enough to actually dislodge the piece of paper from the ballot and create like a little flap. And that is called a hanging Chad. So these terms go from kind of cute sounding dimpled Chad to a little bit dirty sounding hanging Chad as you look at two possible failures. Now, if you think about using something and having it get harder as the day goes on, because for example you haven't garbage collected the results, that just looks like a buffer, like a memory leak problem in computer science. And they managed to implement a technology with a memory leak without malloc involved at all. It's really, really quite impressive. So what did we have to do? Well, that's what led us to this unfortunate photo. Now the consequence of this unfortunate photo was that this at the time, the caption of this photo was along the lines of, what a bunch of idiots in Florida. Look, using this antiquated technology. This can't ever happen again. We're America, the most technologically advanced country on earth. We can't have this in the 21st century, the way we run our elections. This can't ever happen again. And we had something absolutely remarkable happen after that. The Republicans and Democrats have not agreed on whether the sky is blue in a long time, but one thing they absolutely agreed on, this is bad. Congress passed something called the Help America Vote Act with enormous bipartisan support. It was hurriedly passed after the 2000 election, and what did it do? Well, it provided a giant pile of money for the states to shift to accessible voting technology. That is, voting technology that would be easy for the disabled to use, it could be adaptive, and so on. Now, mostly, that technology at the time Help America Vote Act was passed did not exist on the market, right? You couldn't just buy them. There were some machines that met this requirement, but not really very many. What it effectively mandated was the rapid development and deployment of computerized voting technology that was adaptable enough to be useful for the disabled, and that basically means touchscreen voting machines in most cases. Why touchscreen voting machines? Well, it can be adapted to multiple languages very easily. You can select which language you want to vote in very easily. It can have a little audio interface, so if you're blind, you can get instructions. For the profoundly mobility impaired, there are things like sip and puff interfaces that can be used to navigate the screens. It's actually genuinely better for people who are visually impaired, mobility impaired, and so on, than almost any manual technology. But it largely kind of didn't exist on any kind of large scale at the time the Help America Vote Act passed. Now, it also provided substantial funding for states to buy this by a certain deadline. And so, what would you imagine if you were an entrepreneur around that time? This looks like a pretty great business opportunity to meet this newly created demand that the federal government has provided money for all of the various states. And the market succeeded at meeting demand for this. Unfortunately, security requirements weren't really meaningfully represented in the standards that were mandated by Help America Vote Act. Basically, they had to have some relatively minimal checklist of reliability testing. It was kind of left to the states to say what those particular standards were, and ultimately, a few vendors emerged to have these products that were sold to the states, and this money has been essentially spent at this point. So we saw this very rapid shift to touchscreen computerized voting since that election. Okay, now this has been covered a lot earlier today in other talks, and we have examples of this out in the hacking village. But I just want to talk a little bit about what the technologies are. The most common after Help America Vote Act was the direct recording electronic voting machine. That's the voting computer that stores its results internally, typically uses a touch screen with an adaptable interface for voting. There are other types of technologies that were permitted under Help America Vote Act. One is precinct-counted optical scan, which basically is an optical scan like exams, standardized tests back in the 1990s, fill it in with a number 2 pencil, and then put it through something that looks like either a fax machine or a shredder, and reads your ballot and calculates it internally, and then stores the paper ballot. How is that an accessible technology? Well, you can build ballot printer devices, ballot marking devices that use the touchscreen interface for the visually impaired and for the mobility impaired. The country was roughly split, and in some states they use both of these technologies. And then for absentee ballots, they generally use optical scan, centrally counted when you mail those out in. But in all cases, computers are very heavily involved, not just for the tabulation, but at the polling place itself. So this essentially mandated pushing computer voting technology out into the field. Hundreds of these specialized devices out at every of the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of polling places in the US. Okay, now the security here now depends, we've now added the software and hardware of all of these voting computers to the security of the election. The correctness of the software depends a lot, is depended on for the integrity of the election. And of course, compromise of software might be subtle, and we don't know what we're doing when it comes to producing large-scale software that actually works. Hence Patch Tuesday, which is actually every day of the week now. And these are no exception. In fact, many of these machines are running under the hood the same platforms that you get urgent security updates for. But we have no general technique to determine whether software is correct. We have no general technique to even determine how a program behaves under all circumstances. And by the way, we can even prove that we don't know this. This is one of the very few things software correctness knows, which is that general purpose hardware is impossible to say anything reliable about. Complexity kind of makes building correct systems harder, and these systems are very, very complex. It's easy to hide malicious behavior. And it's easy to even hide the audit that the system maintains. Okay, so people have been worried about this for a while. And the question of whether these machines are secure is one that has been the focus of, many computer scientists and election integrity advocates since these machines got introduced about 15 years ago on a large scale. But we had to focus very heavily on the voting machines themselves. And I think one of the most important things to keep in mind is that the voting machines themselves are kind of the shiny, attractive target. These are electronic voting machines. They might be able to be easily compromised, and we worry a lot about their whether or not they have been hacked or have malicious backdoors. And that, a lot of our focus has looked at these. I've been fortunate enough to participate in a number of studies of these systems in which we discovered horrific vulnerabilities where we were literally limited by our typing speed in writing them down. And pretty much everybody has had the same experience. Who's looked at these has had kind of the same experience. Like you open them out of the box and they hit you in the face with some of their vulnerabilities. But in fact, in 2016, we saw what was probably the first in the United States large-scale attempt to disrupt an election. And interestingly, it appears not to have involved voting machines themselves at all. It involved instead the back-end voting systems used by voting officials to register voters, to tally ballots, to create the ballot definitions, and to manage the day-to-day election operations. Why, given that these machines are so vulnerable, would an attacker not use that as an attack vector, but instead would do what looks to be pretty garden variety phishing and Trojan horse attacks against election officials to get to their back end? Why would they do that? Well, the reason is, as easy as it is to attack a voting system, it's even easier to just mail your malware to a voting official wrapped inside an ostensible doc file and have them open it and install it on the back-end system themselves. And so, narrowly focusing on the voting machines as the only part of this voting technology is probably missing a large fraction of the attack surface of these machines generally. So I'm not going to go through the all of the different things that we've discovered with Premiere, and then some being bought by ES&S, so the 4 became 3. And then there is Hart, Intercivic, and Sequoia. Each of these vendors produces both DRE and optical scan systems, as well as the back-end provisioning and tallying software that runs on the network within a county. And between ES&S and Premiere, which are now owned by the same place, that serves kind of 80% of the voting market in the United States. So there have been many questions raised about the security of these systems, partly because the software and the firmware running on them is closely held as a trade secret. And so they're not open to public inspection. You have to, states have to put a lot of pressure on the vendors to allow independent reviews to happen. Now, fortunately, in the most recent round of exemptions to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the Librarian of Congress granted a very broad exemption to the primary law against reverse engineering these systems and without permission. General exemptions were good faith security testing, and specifically called out voting technology as being one of the important areas that this exemption would apply to. So something that would have been very, very difficult to do legally has now been largely blessed as being an important public good if it's done in good faith for the purpose of improving security. So one of the things that I would encourage everybody to do this weekend is spend some time applying your talents in the hacking room, learn how these machines work, and go wild on them. Take them apart, because we have a kind of rare opportunity to open up the community of talent looking at these machines orders of magnitude broader than it's been open ever before, and we're going to learn new things about it. But I would point out, the exemption only applies to you if it's done in good faith. If you're trying to steal an election, it does not apply to you. So please tell us about and publish your results. I think I have a little bit